Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another episode. I want to thank you guys for joining me again. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because I feel like it's a topic that needs to be spoken about. It's something that I can give my perspective and my insight, and today we're going to talk about loneliness. So when it comes to loneliness, for me personally, it's something that I understand like what society says about this, but like for me, I really never identified with what society said. So a lot of people, when you say the word loneliness, they associate that with negative feelings and emotions. And for me, it just was never that way. So just to give you some of my background, like I grew up in a large family with like 5 brothers, right? And we lived in a small apartment. So I was really like having personal space and time for yourself was very, very rare. You know what I mean? It's almost like it was really valuable if you can get that. Like you go to school, you're surrounded by a bunch of kids, and you go home and you're surrounded by a bunch of kids. You know, they're your family, and you love them, but the thing is that you have no personal space for yourself. I didn't have my own room. Everything I had to share. So basically, like for me, I always looked at loneliness as like a positive thing, because I'm like, if I'm by myself, like that gives me the opportunity to really just like think and, you know what I mean, and express myself fully without anyone being around. And to be honest, like I think that's a different thing than loneliness. To me, loneliness is when you start to feel an emotion of being alone. And so for me, I'm tackling this subject in a different angle, because people always tell me like, oh, you're by yourself a lot, which is not true, to be honest, right? So for me, I live by myself, and people always ask me like, how is that? I love it. Like, it's amazing. I go home, because the thing is like, when I was at home, when I go home to visit my family, it's nothing sad or anything, but like, everyone's always to themselves anyway. You know what I mean? My family doesn't have family meals every single day. I'm not saying they never do it, but they don't really have conversations as a family together, right? Those are things that I think are important. And for me, it's kind of like, well, there's no difference, because if I was alone, I'll be doing the same thing. Actually, being alone has given me more ability and time to concentrate and focus on things that I care about. So like being by myself, I spend time to learn, watch videos, read things about the world, and just expand my knowledge of like the things I want to get better at. Yes, I've been successful in my career. I have money now, and that's all good. But like for me, what motivates me is really just growing, becoming smarter, and just obtaining knowledge to help other people. I feel like this channel can help me accomplish that. So yeah, my main thing when it comes to it is like I travel by myself and I love it. It's amazing. I go places by myself and I love it. And I understand that society has a different expectation of like what men can do and what women can do. So obviously, if I was a woman, I wouldn't be able, or I could do these things, but there would be other things I have to consider, right? So like traveling by myself, staying in a hotel by myself, walking streets by myself. These are things that women do have to consider, like the danger and threat level of doing these things. Like by yourself, you're weak. But for me, being by myself, it was never a negative thing that I looked at it, because it was always an advantage. Like every time I went somewhere by myself, I would actually make more friends. I would actually meet more people. Like I felt more free to really just experience, opposed to like being in a group. And there's nothing wrong with like being together. And I hear a lot of people say this, like, oh, like Daniel, how do you get over loneliness, and how do you be by yourself? Like being by yourself is not a bad thing. There's a lot of good things that can come from it. Now, obviously, like you have to realize that if you feel a sense of loneliness, the best thing to do is really like you have to analyze like what is the core root. Because there's many times where I thought I was lonely, and loneliness is a feeling of connection, of a bond, whether it's love, friendship, whatever you want to call it. That sense of belonging is where loneliness stems from. So you can be around people and still feel lonely. And that's something I learned later in life. I never experienced this, but this is something that I actually read up on and did research on. Now with me personally, like when I'm by myself, like it doesn't bother me at all. Because I know that sometimes like if I feel like I am lonely, or I feel like a sense of like I'm more in my head about it, I realize that it's either that I don't have too much stuff to do, which means that my boredom is making my mind like run on and focus on it. It's really about like controlling your mindset and your mentality. And so that's my key. Like, people always ask me, like, how do you not get lonely? It's not like I don't have thoughts of loneliness, but the reason why I don't get lonely is because I control my mindset and my thoughts about these situations. Mind you, it doesn't just apply to this. It applies to everything in life. No matter what situation or circumstance, mindset is what's going to get you through it. And that's something that I learned very early on. And it's something I had to practice. Another thing is, like, I know how I am when I'm with people than when I'm by myself. When I'm by myself, I think more clearly, right? I focus more. That's something that, like, you don't really get that when you're with other people, because think about it, you're with other people, you have to, your social part of your brain is really working. But when you separate that and you're with yourself and your thoughts, internally you can actually start to analyze some of your actions, and you can see how you actually start to change and become different. And so in the beginning, when I was by myself, like, it didn't affect me. The only thing that affected me is if, like, I ate by myself and everyone else had someone else to eat with. And I think that's where it comes from. Like, in your mind, you see all these other people around you interacting, being social. Now, mind you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's amazing, actually. You can have fun, great times, and great memories with other people, obviously. But it doesn't mean you have to be miserable. Honestly, you can still enjoy being by yourself. Sometimes I think it just takes practice for some people. But like I said, the way I grew up, it was like I always valued, like, having alone time and free time. And to be honest, like, right now I'm 27, and, like, there's times where I think about it, like, how would my life be different if I had a social group, right, that I would spend a lot of time with, if I lived with my family, if I even, like, had a girlfriend and moved in with her. How would my life be different? And it's not just those things I think about. My mind thinks of the day, like, I'm very aware of the fact that it's okay to do something differently. Especially if what you're doing is, like, something that you really truly know you can handle it and you can get through that, then why not? Like, you know what I mean? There's no shame in being by yourself. And I've had girls tell me that basically that they can't be by themselves. They've tried. And that's just something that I don't believe. I think that if you prepare yourself to do the mental work that it takes to actually be ready, then that's fine. But most people, they don't want to do the mental work, right? Or they just don't know that it's possible to even practice to do these things. A lot of times you would think it's common sense. I know I did in the beginning, to actually prepare, like, train yourself to be mentally tough, to handle it. A lot of people, they just choose either not to go through with it or just are complacent. You know what I mean? For me personally, I knew that everything in life is really, most of the stuff in life is about not only your actions but also your mindset. And so a lot of times, if you don't see a result that you want, you have to change inside and change your mindset to see those results. I'm not saying that's easy at all, but I'm saying it's something that you would have to do and able to be comfortable with that. And a lot of articles lately have been coming out with, like, things about loneliness, things about being by yourself and the benefits. And I think society as a culture is shifting towards that. So yeah, that's what I have, my perspective on that. But yeah, I'll see you guys in my next Let's Talk, and peace. Bye.